And breathe. Well, welcome back to Piers Morgan Uncensored. Assessing Britain's monarchy as a brand might seem superficial, even sacrilegious, but not to the royals, who have seen themselves as a family business ever since George VI nicknamed them the Firm. The British monarchy has long been a global juggernaut as a brand, and the late Queen was its brand ambassador, and an amazing one at that. But will the monarchy under King Charles continue to stoke global intrigue? Well, some commentators have huffed that the coronation will be the monarchy's last imperial hurrah, and a decline in the number of US media crews at Saturday's event indicates maybe the royal sparkle is dimming. Well, joining me now is Tina Brown, author of the Palace Papers, alongside Paul and Tessa. Tina, great to talk to you. I can't think of anyone better to put all this into...
I'm very happy to hear you, trashing the Vikings, I mean...
Well, you know what? I just think
It's time they got cancelled,
Absolutely.
I must say.
Don't even get me started on the Romans. But once you go back in history looking for people who've invaded places and demanding you want money for it, we're all going to get quids in and the entire world goes bust. Anyway, that's not why I've got you on. Tina, put me into proper perspective about where we are with the monarchy, with King Charles and the future, because it seems to me we've reached a real difficult moment, I think, for the monarchy as an institution, for the country, and anything could happen.
Well, it is a very sort of pivotal moment that Charles has taken over. I actually think it's probably a good thing it was him, not William, because in a sense, he's going to be this kind of sorbet course between the two reigns, right? And he's got to somehow get out of the last reign's sort of extraordinary charisma that it had and position in the next reign for William. And actually, I think he's going to be much better than just a transitional monarch because he is a really accomplished statesman. I think one of the things that I think people here are quite surprised at, those who pay attention, which isn't very many, I'll be honest, but those who do are quite surprised at just how well Charles has handled this whole interregnum, if you like, between the Queen's death and him taking over, starting right when he came out of the box, right after the Queen died. Wonderful, human, excellent, speech, terribly dignified, during the funeral, and actually has weathered the whole kind of Sussex grudgernaut with tremendous kind of aplomb.
Well, he has. But here's the but I would put in, the spanner in the works, if you like. There's no doubt that he's worked, I think, in this country. The latest poll shows still a significant majority in favour of a monarchy, many echoing the points you've just made about how Charles has handled it so far, and I totally concur with that. But there's a pretty worrying poll about the rest of the Commonwealth, where a lot of countries have fed into this Sussex narrative that the royals are racist, and they're moving fast towards a republic. I interviewed the Prime Minister of Australia yesterday. He's a diehard Republican. No doubt there's going to be a referendum, I think, probably in his second term if he wins it. And that could well go the wrong way for the monarchy. And that could be like a domino effect if we're not careful.
I'm not so sure, though, that the sovereign realms are in anybody's expectations that that's going to continue. I mean, if there are any sovereign realms by the time William takes over, I'd be very, very surprised. And actually, I think that Charles is fairly sanguine about that, inevitability of that happening. The fact is that this is a time of huge transition. I mean, the Queen, the Commonwealth was the Queen's great love, and it made her a kind of a global monarch. But those times have changed. I mean, you saw how terribly they've changed. I mean, how amazingly they've changed just by that whole, messed up royal tour of William and Kate when they went to Jamaica. They were doing all the same old things, but suddenly they were in the wrong movie. It just suddenly looked like, wait a minute, the world has changed. You're doing the same things. So I don't think that the Commonwealth as sovereign realms will continue. But I do think that the Commonwealth as a club of nations, allied by trade, values, shared sense of, fair elections, all of those things, that is going to be still, I think, a very powerful club. And I think Charles is probably quite reconciled to that, actually.
What should he do about the Duke and Duchess of Sussex? Should they remain able to use their titles to generate such huge income? Oh, Tina, I think you've lost contact. Yeah. We'll sort that. Don't worry, we'll come back and sort Tina's mic out.
Just a quick line with me now, isn't it?
Well, no, quick.
Yes.
No, actually, yeah. What should they do? I'll tell you what. React to first of all what Tina said about the Commonwealth. Do you agree with that?
I do think it's it is inevitable we will lose Australia and Canada. I do.
And Jamaica.
Huge land
I think
masses.
before,
I don't know about Jamaica, but I do think the Commonwealth...
I think quite a few Caribbean countries will go.
The Commonwealth should stay together. It works.
Does it matter?
Yes. What really infuriates me is how bad the reporting is. Nobody fully seems to understand the difference between the 14 realms, which I don't think Charles will end up remaining head of state of, and the Commonwealth, by the way, in which countries who cast off our king remain in the Commonwealth.
Right.
It's this grouping, and do you know what's so crucial about it? It's away from the hoof of America, something we do, and many of the countries are smaller, imperiled by climate change. Together, we're greater than the sum of our parts.
That's a good point. OK, we've got Tina back. Tina, we left the viewers on a cliffhanger of whether Charles should strip his son Harry and Meghan of their titles. Should they be allowed to continue to exploit the royal titles whilst causing, clearly, demonstrable damage to the institution that afforded those titles on them?
Well, I mean, I think that, you know, there's probably quite a lot of personal, emotional desire to do that. But anybody smart advising Charles would say, don't do it. Because the fact is that if he strips them of their titles, they have a whole new grudge match to go to town with. And right now, they're sort of fading, is the truth. Both, I think, in the US and in the UK. Certainly as kind of fascination figures. I mean, they're now in their next kind of phase where they're simply going to have to prove themselves in terms of celebrity content. I mean, it's all going to be about what's next. You know, I know that Meghan is scrambling very hard now to kind of figure out what is she going to do now with this huge deal she had from Netflix to, you know, create content. She actually hasn't done any content except for the documentary. So people are looking at them and thinking, well, OK, we had that. That was great. You were a massive celebrity for, you know, for the whole of the end of last year. What's next? What's next? They're now having to manufacture product.
Yeah, I mean, there's a limit. There's a limit to how much whining.
There's a complete limit.
Well, a limit to how much whining you can do and how much the public will stomach. I mean, their popularity has absolutely plummeted on both sides of the Atlantic. Paul,
their USP is being royal.
Right.
And whilst ever they're royal and have titles, they can make money because they are considered to be the royal family in America. Charles can't take the titles away from them because Harry was born a royal prince. So that makes Meghan a princess.
He
didn't change the letters patent.
The bigger role, and Tina said this at the beginning of the interview, was not many people really care about King Charles. And I think we talk all the time about Harry and Meghan because we don't want to face the truth, which is the dude at the top at the moment, the guy who's going to get coronated on Saturday, just isn't, frankly, that interesting.
OK, Tina, the other person who's getting a crown on Saturday, of course, is Camilla. What an amazing journey it's been for Camilla. I mean, if you go back to really after Diana died, she was the most reviled woman in Britain, and now she's going to be crowned.
She was so reviled. Do you remember they called her old boot, old bag, vampire? I mean, the list of epithets that we used about her. There was even, you know, a restaurant dish called smoked had at Parker Bowles at one point. She was in such terrible repute. But, you know, she's exactly proved about just playing the long game. You know, she has got Elizabeth II-like sort of durability and you know, sort of patience, quite honestly, which has really been remarkable. Interestingly, she hasn't really broken through in the United States at all. One of the problems for Camilla here is that, first of all, she's still really, if anybody does think about her, they think about her through the prism of Diana, you know, who always saw her as the usurper, the Rottweiler. That has kind of faded. The trouble is that as she can't do a TV interview, because that would be very unwise, and Camilla is not as unwise as everybody else in her family have done TV interviews, she's not going to fall into that trap and do it. So how does she, in a sense, you know, project the sort of warm, human, humorous person that she actually is in the United States? They don't get it at all. They think that she is a sort of... They get her completely wrong here. I mean, they think that she's a kind of a, quote, battle axe, you know, a sort of a wannabe. I mean, they use the most extraordinary adjectives about her when they talk about it to me. I said, no, you get her completely wrong. Yeah. You know, she's not like that at all. But quite hard for her, I think, now to break through. And I don't think she's probably ever going to here.
Finally, Tina, will you be watching tomorrow?
Oh, God,
sorry, on Saturday.
I'm going to be commentating with CBS, so I shall be speaking to the great American
public. Well, I'll be
public.
anchoring for Fox, so we'll both have our vantage points. But it's going to be an amazing event, and I think, I mean, the one thing it will do, it does remind people that we might not be great in many other ways now, but boy, can we put on some pomp and pageantry. Apparently, the procession on Saturday will be twice as big as the one for the Queen's funeral and 3 times as big as the one for the Platinum Jubilee.
It's going to be absolutely glorious. And the truth is that, of course, for all the kind of so-called lack of interest here, once that starts, people will be sitting there in their pyjamas at 5 o'clock in the morning, completely glued to it and just marvelling.
Will you be saying the oath?
It's going to be fabulous.
Of allegiance?
I'm not so crazy about that oath of allegiance.
No, I don't think anybody is.
Oh, my God.
When did we become North Korea? I mean, I just don't think it's going to fly.
I hope it's not going to just be this sort of giant national raspberry that's kind of you hear through length and breadth of the country, because whoever got overexcited and suggested that, I think it was
I think the blame is being parked with the Archbishop of Canterbury. Tina, great to talk to you, and best of luck on Saturday. It's going to be a hell of an occasion.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you taking time to join us. Thank you very much.